Hey everyone, and we are live with another episode of Who Are They? Real Talk. Once again, I am Matt, and this wouldn't be Real Talk without the one and the only Nick Malbach.
Oh, sorry. Apparently my iPad's telling me that we're live, and I just noticed that for the first time. But hey everybody, how's it going? How's it hanging? Cheers to another day of quarantine.
Another quarantine episode. And today
it's going to be how we end up recording everything from now on.
Yeah, the quarantine created a necessity that we had been looking for, or showed us the way to a necessity that we had been looking for.
I don't like leaving my house, so it's fine.
I don't like driving to his house just to record and us to not be able to do it live. But now we are able to do it live and have more fun and put everything in the past, all the recordings in the past, and just have fun going forward. But joining us today, we have the one and the only Taylor Cleek.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you. I was just doing a little quarantine reading this evening. So nice of you to join me. How you guys doing?
We're joining you, huh?
Yeah, thank you for joining me on this Kevin Smith read-along. You guys heard of this guy?
Yeah, I've heard a few things about him.
He's a pretty good author.
Pretty good. I mean, he's comic book author. Yeah, he's fantastic, man.
I've heard he does some other things, too.
Yeah, he does quite a few other things. Like, he's got his podcasts, and he directs Supergirl and The Flash sometimes. And there's some other things he directs, too, but we'll get to that later. But joining us today, he's a regular on the show, but today he's actually a guest. He's like the Eddie Murphy of WAT Real Talk, because Eddie Murphy. You got the reference, Taylor? You got the reference?
Looks just like him.
We have Connor Breedlove.
Eddie Murphy.
How's it going?
Give it up for the new guy.
I'm only here to talk about the Eddie Murphy classic, Norbit. Norbit.
No.
Norbit. Sorry.
If anything, talk about Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps.
Yes,
no, we're talking about Norbit. We're talking about Norbit. I'm happy to be here. This is my second podcast or live stream of the night, and I'm ready to go. I'm happy to be here.
How drunk are you? How drunk are you?
I'm on a level from 1 to drunk. I'm feeling good.
It's a good scale.
Yes. And joining us, our other guest, Miss Paige Farrow. How you doing, Paige?
It's me, Eddie. What's up?
Paige and Connor are working on a project which you're going to talk about in just a few moments. But how's everyone's quarantine? Just real quick, show of hands. Who thinks we should actually be let out of this in May 1st? Because I don't.
No, board up people's doors and windows and throw shit at them if they try to come outside. We are not ready to leave yet.
Yeah, give it a few more weeks. I don't think we're ready.
All right. And
I enjoy my life outside of it.
I miss civilization, to be certain, but I'm not. Even if you opened it up, I'm too scared to go outside now. This is life.
And of course, real quick, you just gotta throw this up here.
Yay, George!
There he is.
Hey!
Who just did the Bob? Oh, that was Nick. Who did the Babu Frick?
Talk like Babu Frick. I've been doing that a lot to people that have no clue what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'll let them know. I'm like a Jehovah's Witness of Babu Frick. So if people don't know, I gotta.
Do you
tell
know
them.
About our Lord and Savior, Babu Frick?
I gotta tell them. If they don't know, they're gonna hear about him.
All right. Well, just real quick. Today's show, we're going to be interviewing Connor and Paige about this project they are working on, and that's going to be probably about half the show or so, and then the other half of the show today will be our discussion, Snoogans, a Kevin Smith discussion. So, pretty excited for that.
Samesies.
Yeah, there's going to be some fun heckling and discussion amongst that. Trust me. But real quick, Connor and Paige. First off, why don't you tell us a little bit about this project you're working on? Let's start off with Paige.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I know we did a live stream earlier. If you watched it, I'm sorry. I'm going to repeat myself. So me and Connor We've been writing it for years now. We didn't have the right direction. We did bring in somebody else recently after the few months we worked on it, probably 2019. So Julian's not here today, but shout out to Julian. He's been amazing. The three of us kind of worked together to show more of the reality of, I guess, love and the reality of heartbreak, and it's called Broken Heart Society. I'm going to let Connor talk, though, because he is the director and writer. I'm unfortunately just cinematography, so.
All right.
Go ahead.
That's a little bit of an undersell on Paige's part. She's contributed to the writing. She's had fantastic ideas, but she's been a great partner, and she's helped me kind of bring this idea to life. Like she said, we've been working on it for a while. We had an idea, and it went several directions, but when we brought Julian on through Paige, we finally had the right direction, and we've come to like a pretty focused, concise idea. And it's basically about this this guy who he has this rare genetic disease where he can literally die from a broken heart, and it's just about him kind of learning and growing and coming to terms with this. He meets a girl that he kind of accepts the risk of his disease, and he's willing to risk his own life to live a happy and normal life with someone. And the name Broken Heart Society comes from a kind of support group that he joins with other people that have the same rare disease. And it's been I've grown through writing it. Definitely, I think I've matured while writing it in my own life. So it's been a lot of fun to write, and we're excited to get it going.
All right. Well, first off, so you said you just mentioned the process of writing it. What was the inspiration? That's what I really want to know. What caused you to like circle on to this particular story?
Personal experience, really. Not really. I don't actually have like a rare genetic disease, but the idea first came from my first trip to New York, and it was just like a weird time. I enjoyed New York, but I like everybody around me. I don't know. It felt weird, and you could like see sad people, and I came up with this idea. It was originally called like the saddest man alive or something like that, and it was about a guy who kind of consumed people's sadness and stuff, and there was really no direction to it. It was just about this guy who ends up dying because he consumed too much sadness. And I scrapped that idea, revisited later when me and Paige talked about writing something together, and we kind of reworked the idea. But it kind of stems from that, and my own personal experiences with kind of getting in my own way and my personal relationships. And that goes back to how I said I've matured and grown while writing it, because I kind of worked out my own issues while writing it, I think.
Okay. Well, so I know you guys had your own stream earlier, and I tried to catch what I could of it. But realistically, how long time OJ, go ahead. Time frame wise, how long have you guys been working on this?
It's probably been a few years, right?
It's been a few years.
I think the tail end of like 2017, beginning of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved to Ohio from Michigan in 2017, and me and Connor kind of rekindled a friendship there, and we had this idea. I think it was funny because most people will kind of write a script and then they'll get who they want to work with. Me and Connor kind of did the opposite, and we had visions for how we were going to edit or how we were going to do this and who we were going to cast. And we had this kind of idea of who we would want to be around all the time when filming, and then we kind of went into writing a different way. And like he said, we ended up getting pretty personal with it. We weren't at first, and I think Connor was coming out of this relationship. I was kind of rekindling an old relationship, but it kind of flared on this idea where Connor wanted me to write the female lead in the film, and then he would kind of work on the male. So it was really weird how we wrote it, but it initially worked out in our favor and how we ended up getting the script that we did in the end. But
so I know you said your job's as the cinematographer. Earlier in your other stream, you mentioned the fact that there was one film you were talking about and you loved the use of red and whatnot. Are there any films that you'd say, because I know you know what the script is, do you have any ideas as to what you're thinking of as a color scheme or whatnot, and what do you bring as a cinematographer?
yeah, so we are doing something pretty special when we start the process. And we made color boards and we kind of went over ideas for a while. And I don't think this is spoiling. I'm sorry, Connor and Julian. So for each, I guess, lead that we have in the film, we're actually doing certain color themes. So something's going to be either this hazy orange, or we're going to do, I'll get into that. But we decided we were going to showcase emotion through color instead of so much as dialogue and such like that. So I think that's why we took on writing so much, at least me and Julian did, because normally a cinematographer is not going to write on the script. I mean, it depends, but most likely they're not going to. But I ended up kind of joining Connor in the writing process when we figured out that sort of route with it. And that you'll kind of see that, I guess, when we film.
All right, I know Nick and Taylor probably have their own questions, so I'll take a back seat for a moment and let them.
No, just really excited for the project, first of all. I always love seeing the people in my life that I've worked with and all that being creative. But I guess my question is, like, I just guess I have a few other random questions, like how long is it? Where are you gonna film? What type of people you're looking for? Because one of the big things about this podcast is that it's reaching a big Cleveland scene right now. You know, a lot of people who are really interested in working, who are really talented, who will be more than happy to do certain roles. So if you want to share what you guys might be looking for, how long it is, where you might be filming and stuff like that.
It's going to be around like 45 to an hour. That's what we're aiming for. There's a lot of depth into it, so it's going to be lengthier than anything I've done or anything they've done. So we're kind of refining the script now, so we don't have a definitive. Right around now, it'd probably be around 40-45 minutes. But like I said, we're revising right now, so it might come longer, shorter. We're not sure yet. In terms of who we're looking for, we want it to be very personable in terms of getting people who can, mesh well together. We want it to seem very real. We're shooting on iPhones. That's a big thing that we kind of went into the writing process with like how are we going to film this, these certain scenes that we were writing, and we kind of decided that we would just use iPhones, do some guerrilla shooting. I think Soderbergh kind of proved that you can use whatever to make a movie and, you know, make it look cinematic. So we're going forward with that. It's based around some a bunch of 20-year-olds, like 20-something-year-olds. You know, they're entering in this next stage of their life, and they're learning how to be adults, to live in these you know, mature relationships, and that's really the kind of the core theme of it, is just maturing. So it's in terms of who we're looking for, just in the 20s range, really.
So it's basically kind of like a more adult coming of age story.
Yeah. It's like the next stage of a coming of age story.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know you just mentioned shooting on iPhones. You said you wanted to have more of that guerrilla style kind of feel. What was the thought process behind that decision?
I'm not sure. I think it was just to make it seem more real. Because we came up with, because we'll be shooting in like kind of public places, and we thought, you know, how can we make this seem real without, you know, getting people looking at the camera and stuff. And we kind of came up with the idea, well, if we shoot it on an iPhone, it'll seem more realistic. It'll be kind of in the moment, and we can probably get away with more.
I think we dissected, I guess, the differences between the reality in the script and the movie part of the script. And I think more of it was a reality rather than we're going to make up this disease that's going to kill these people. We're going to have these things happening. But like I said earlier, we really want to show the in-between of things that happen with heartbreak. And when you're in your 20s, I know mental illness is really huge. We kind of get into how these characters are feeling with not really getting what they want in life, but they're dealt these cards and they have to kind of figure out what they're going to do. And I think filming with an iPhone is kind of going to take control more of the shooting style rather than if we were going to shoot with cameras and prime lenses and yada, yada, yada. But I think that's where we kind of decided the iPhone was going to be the route of that. Like we were following these characters in life and filming their day-to-day activities and how they react to normal life sequences and such like that.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you wrote a lot of the female lead. Can you tell us a little about her? Because Connor kind of gave us an overview of what the male lead is. Tell us a little bit about that female lead.
Her name's Bex. She kind of has this, I guess she's like the most melancholic thing in the film. She definitely, you see that she doesn't care for a lot of other people's feelings. She's very self-centered in ways. She doesn't really know how to treat people that she loves very well. She goes through a lot of hardships growing up, especially you'll see stuff with family. And I think it was kind of easy for me to write that, having personal experiences with growing up and family and just father issues, and you kind of get into that. And it's funny because we didn't really want to do daddy issues and stuff, so we ended up going with a relationship between her and her mother more. And you kind of see how she's impacted by that, and how the reason why she's the way that she is because of parental sort of things that happen. But yeah, I can't say too much because I'll give it away. But.
Okay.
I do want to say it's cool to finally hear about this film, because I've seen you guys posting about it on social media and stuff. Knowing now that Connor, you've been working on it for so long, I feel like I can remember you even talking about it back when it was called Saddest Man on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So finally hearing what it's about, it's exciting. I think it's a really cool high concept idea. Connor, obviously, he and I worked on Murmur, as did Nick, so it's really cool to see you on the director's position again, because I think you absolutely nailed it when we worked together. And I'm excited to see what Paige brings to it, because I've known her for years, and I've been a fan of her visual work, photography work for years. So I'm really excited to see what she brings to a film project. For Connor, at what point did you decide to bring other people in for the creative process, writing a script? Because I'm sure that was maybe kind of an intimidating thing to do for something that was so close to you. What inspired you to bring other people in?
Yeah, it was definitely intimidating. I think when I realized, like, hey, I should probably reach out to someone, was when I got about, it kind of stemmed from just having something written, only a small chunk, and then just going back over it and over it and over it again and again, just not being able to get further, whether that's just being like stuck in my everyday life and not really progressing. Like Paige said, she moved back and we got to talking. We actually have like a list of ideas, future projects, stuff like that, and we just bounced back to this idea, and she's pretty much was on board, and from there she was throwing out all these ideas, and I loved every single one of them, and we just got to writing, and since then, like, I hope to work on many more projects with her. It's been a great time actually getting this done, and I can't wait to just get it going.
Right on. And the flip side for Paige, I'm wondering, what about the project appealed to you and made you want to get on board?
Truly, for real. Besides the fact that it was gonna be me and Connor working on a project together which I've always wanted to do, knowing him, I thought the idea was incredibly unique, and I thought that just from that simple, weird idea of that these people are gonna die of a broken heart and it's an actual disease, and he showed me a few like mock-up scripts and stuff. I thought that the visual side of something like that, especially with if we could potentially kill off somebody or potentially do these things before we even wrote it, I thought that it would honestly be really, really pretty to shoot something like this, because I had so many ideas flowing in my head for it, especially when he showed me, I'm not going to spoil it, he showed me an intro, and we kind of got into a lot of like flashback ideas and stuff, and I thought it would be really cool to shoot a lot of, we pitched ideas for like in Stranger Things, they do those things where Mike is talking to 11 and it's like a blackout, but you see him in it and it's like wet, and we had cool ideas of that to where we would get weird with it and we had creative freedom to do it. And I think that the fucked up parts that we wrote and we kind of got into were going to be, in the end, beautiful. They would be beautifully shot, and we wanted to show that. And I think from the beginning, I knew that this was going to be something, at least to us. But yeah.
You did mention Stranger Things. I'm wondering for either of you, what would you mark as influences, whether it's on the visual end, whether it's on the creative writing end? What would you say, like filmmaker wise or film wise, or it could be anything? What would you consider influential on this one?
Let's start with Connor on this one.
I watched a lot of romantic dramedies, I guess. 500 Days of Summer being a big influence.
Well, that's
Don John kind of deals with maturing in current relationships, so that was an influence. There were a few others, but I grab influence from like films I'm watching. I think Her was a big influence, taking this kind of unique, out there, strange idea and placing it into a real world setting. I grabbed that kind of from Her. And those are probably the three main influences for me in terms of writing and crafting the idea.
Okay. Paige, how about you?
Mine wasn't so much films, actually. I think mine was a lot of music, only because I would find these albums and I would listen to them from front to back, and I would kind of say, this is a story throughout here. And music to me, I feel it when I'm listening to it. And I was listening to a lot of like Karen O, and I was listening to a lot of movie soundtracks, even like just like artists that like to write albums that are not so much personal experiences, but they're experiences from things that they've seen. So they would write from, I guess, other people's experiences. Like I was listening to a lot of Donna Missel, a lot of females, only because I wanted to get the story of Bex from a lot of other experiences, because when we wrote her, I didn't really I didn't relate too much to her emotionally, so music did that for me when I wrote.
I mean, I think music helps any writer with something, because music can put you in that mood for whatever scene you're writing, honestly. Because I know I think Lou's talked about how he listens to music when he writes. I know I listen to music when he writes. I don't know about Taylor, but I know Taylor's a writer. He could probably speak on if he does or not. But I think that's kind of important, especially when you're writing, because if you're doing that, you're tapping it. Music can unlock your emotions, and you can tap into them more while writing. So I understand that completely.
I've even found that with editing videos and stuff like that, where I could turn on a music. Really, I've been doing a lot of movie soundtracks while editing A Shattered Diamond, and even the Her soundtrack. I know you had mentioned Her. Really kind of taps into the mood of the entire movie. Pretty much every single song. It's one of my favorite movies, so I could kind of pinpoint where it's going to actually happen within it. But I can, you really can take a lot from just music when it comes to anything creatively, I've learned. So.
Yeah, that was a big part. She would just send me these songs, and she would tell me, like, I'm listening to this, and I think during this scene that we wrote, if this happened, and she would just go, she would have like the next like couple pages of story for Bex, just off of one song. And I think that was important when I asked her to kind of write down ideas and some chunks of dialogue for Bex, because I could write from my perspective, but I couldn't write from like I said, it's a story about progressing. I wrote this when, getting out of a relationship, I didn't know what went wrong, and when I was writing it, I couldn't really, not knowing what went wrong, I couldn't write from the female's perspective. And I think that's where I was kind of getting blocked. And So I asked her to kind of jot down some ideas, and every day she would just send me pages of ideas and photos and songs and all this stuff. And it definitely helped a lot. After asking her to do that, we had meetings like once, twice a week. And we ended up finishing the script fairly quickly after that. So.
Okay. Well, guys, if anyone who's watching, if you have questions, go ahead and shoot them on in. You'll be able to see them pop up. They'll answer them. We'll answer them. Doesn't matter what it is. But this is Connor and Paige. They just talked to us about Broken Hearts, their film Broken Heart Society that they'll be going into production with soon. But I know Connor, Taylor, and Nick, one of our biggest influences, we've all talked about it, is the one and the only Kevin Smith. And this is something I know we've wanted to talk about for a while, and we've had our own conversations about it, but being able to just actually talk about it on the internet, on the podcast, I got to set the mood a little bit more real quick. But yeah.
You can get movies postmated to you if you live in LA right now, I think, which is really irrelevant to all of us, but cool fact.
But yeah, so let's talk about it. Kevin Smith, arguably one of the greatest film makers of all time. So what you got? What I'm going to start off with this. What do you think his most underrated film is?
Whoa.
I'm going to say Red State.
Really?
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget Red State exists because it's so unlike anything else he's made. I wish he would make something else like Red State because I think it shows he has a capacity to make actually a compelling drama that doesn't just go back on the same tropes and in jokes and weed and shit like that. It's completely separate. It feels unlike anything else. I would say one of his best movies. Actually, it's a really interesting, compelling thriller.
Okay. That's different. That wasn't what I was expecting to hear from him, honestly.
Because it's underrated, baby.
Connor,
you didn't realize it existed for a second there.
Hold on. We do have a question real quick for the awesome Miss Allie Swift. How do you guys get film location inspiration, and how many times can you actually follow through where you want your film to be shot with permits being such a factor?
I wrote a lot of this takes place in I think 3 or 4 locations. Most of it takes place in the lead male character's apartment. I just wrote kind of settings based on where I live, my own apartment. And then there's Bex's apartment, and then the meeting place for Broken Heart Society would just be like a big gymnasium. We were supposed to get started on setting filming locations and stuff like that, but then all this stuff happened, and we kind of put a hold on that because we can't really do anything at this time. So we haven't really gotten that far yet. So
okay. Taylor, I know you're a writer. How about you? How do you go about this? And Nick, since you do your filmmaking also, we're going to finish with you.
For locations, I mean, it's always really something I've had to think about. One time, I've had only one script come to production, being Murmur, obviously, with these guys. I just kind of aim for the stars when I'm writing. I just think of where it makes sense for the scene to be, and hope ideally we'll find a place that can honor that request. I think we did a pretty okay job on the movie. Some of it was locations that were familiar to us. Some of them were locations we had to go and find. But I just whatever's in my head, I just put it down and hope I can find something close to it.
Nick?
Okay. Well, there's a million different examples that I could come up when it comes to locations. I mean, when it comes to the writing process, I always like to see it as don't limit yourself, because there's always somewhere that's going to want to be available, whether it be for us, like the Cleveland Film Commission website. Now, some of those locations obviously do cost money, but a lot of them are willing to work with people. But even just being in the film scene around here, I think that, I mean, honestly, when it comes to locations, knowing people is half the battle. And what's really nice and what's really great is people have always, for at least my productions, and I know for Murmur, finding what we used as the therapist office was, I think, given to us by a faculty member. So it was really nice to be able to find that. But really, I mean, like, don't limit yourself when it comes to your writing. Like, I know for a Shattered Diamond, we needed a house. We got a house. We needed a baseball field. We found a baseball field. And even if you see a location, when it came to Rise of Ren, I know that one of our main locations for the movie, I stumbled upon just going for a walk one day at the Metro Park. So just don't limit yourself. I guess that's my big thing.
I thought you were going to talk more about the making connections for like restaurants and things like that when it came to a Shattered Diamond. That's
when it came to Shattered Diamond, I mean, there's a big chain of how we ended up getting a certain location. So we used Local Tavern's Fish Bar as our restaurant location, and that was the restaurant Local Tavern that's around here went to my brother playing jam nights there. So we were there a lot. My family became close to the owner and knew him. So getting into contact with him in order to film was just made our process a lot easier. And, businesses really like the idea of their business being shown in the credits. So it's kind of nice in that sense. Unfortunately, this place is not around anymore, but when Matt and I were doing one of our 48th ones, the location play, which was a big arcade, let us use one of their stages for one of our projects. We're completely open to doing that. So, like I say, it is a lot about the people that you know. So.
All right. Well, Connor reminded me we do have a few questions from their podcast earlier. So we're getting those sent over here. And first off, we have, what kind of film would you like to write in the near future and why? Do the three of you have any in the works? This is for Connor and Paige.
We've talked about a couple ideas that we would like to work on in the future or possibly next. One was like another kind of personal story on my end, and I think Paige related to it as well. I never really met my biological father, and I was supposed to meet him recently, and he kind of bailed, and it kind of hit me hard. And I had recently watched for the millionth time The Spectacular Now, and that kind of deals with a kid who is struggling with not knowing why his dad left, and dealing with relationships and stuff like that. And that kind of I matured writing this story that we're working on, and I thought, hey, this might be a good idea to work through this as well. And so that's one idea that we had, and I think we've always been drawn to horror. So I think we would really like to work on a horror film next as well. So those are a couple things we would like to work on next.
Paige, how about you?
Yeah, I think we're gonna do horror. I think we enjoy kind of like comic relief and a lot of things, and I think horror would be fun for us to try to wrap our minds together to do. I know me and Connor did have the talk on the father one. I would like to do probably like a comedy thriller. I was during quarantine, I've been into a lot of thrillers. I think I don't think you can do any wrong. So I feel like you could have a lot of free time to do anything with locations or how you want people to, I guess, react to certain dialogue and such. So I think I would go with maybe like a comedy thriller. And I'm sure Connor would do that for sure.
Connor, does that mean truth or dare could happen?
Yeah.
There's one right answer.
Yes, definitely. I am upset that Blumhouse beat us to Truth or Dare.
To the title.
They did such a good job too.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh God.
But yeah, thriller horror movie. I think we went through a lot while writing this. Like we've talked about, it is kind of sad. It's pretty downbeat, and you can only put yourself through so much while writing something before getting into something so personable immediately after. So I think we did have the idea to put the father movie on hold for a little bit and work on something that we can kind of just have fun with. And I think that would be a horror or a thriller type of movie where we can throw in comedic elements, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be mentally prepared to write something like this for a while.
Yeah.
As much as I loved it, I would never want to write something like this again, only because I feel like it would be hard to, I guess, take away from what I already wrote and kind of do this new thing where I look at experiences from other people again and go through the whole process. I think, I don't know.
There was a chunk
again, only because I would feel bored in a sense. Because I think it's a one-time thing for sure with what we did with this film.
Yeah, there was a chunk that we wrote, and after it, we kind of were just silent, and it took us a couple days to actually go back and finish the script because it was towards the end, and we were gearing up to actually finish it, but it was a lot. I think during that time we wrote like 16, 15 pages in one sitting, and a lot of it was just this one scene, and it was a lot. It's definitely one of the more dramatic and emotional scenes, and we kind of had a lot with that. So we want to do something fun and carefree next.
Fun and carefree. Like a certain stoner we know and love.
Wow, smooth transition.
Hey, I thought I had a smooth transition when we talked about horror, and I was going to let you guys go off about Tusk, but they kind of swerved away from that, so I had to find the next one. But no, fun and carefree. That's the best way to describe Kevin Smith films. I'm going to be just
smooth transition.
Yes, smooth transition. Well, I'll say this. Fun and carefree is the way to describe three Kevin Smith films. You have Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and Mallrats. Those are the three that are really fun and carefree. I'd
say the Clerks movies are pretty. The first one.
The second one I'd say is more fun and carefree. The first one has some actual ethos behind it.
Yeah, fair enough.
When you have a movie about Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back or Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, when it's literally about our two favorite stoners going across country to stop the making of a movie about their likenesses, there was a conversation with Chris earlier where he said that Kevin Smith, of the four Kevin Smith films he watched, which were Clerks 2, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, he would only suggest Clerks. And I told him, I warned him ahead of time. I'm like, Chris, buddy, I love you, but I'm going to have to disagree with the Clerks 2 and the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back of the situation. What would your thoughts on that be?
As far as recommending his movies?
Yeah.
I mean, it all depends on taste, obviously. That's true for any movie. I mean, you got to have like a pretty irreverent sense of humor. The whole like stoner thing really doesn't even come into play too hard until later in his career, because strangely enough, he's now so synonymous with smoking weed, but he didn't at all early in his career. I'd say watch the first Clerks. If it plays well for you at all, then you could check out the other stuff, and if not, it's probably not going to work out for you. I mean, as far as like Jay and Silent Bob reboot, I mean, if you're not only a fan of his movies, but a fan of him as a public figure, it's completely inaccessible if you're not a fan of his. It would be complete nonsense. So I would recommend the movies because I enjoy them, but I would start at Clerks, and if that doesn't work, then go ahead and jump off. I
mean, honestly, if it's someone looking for a just to get laughs, my suggestion would be the first Jay and Silent Bob Strike, because that's the one that was honestly my first Kevin Smith film. That was the first Kevin Smith film I ever saw, and didn't know anything else about the characters. I just said, "Oh, this looks funny. Let me check it out," and I was laughing my ass off. Didn't know a damn thing, and then that's how I went back and discovered Clerks, and went back and discovered Mallrats, and it's just became this whole thing. And I know, Paige, you just said you got to leave, so we'll let you head out. It was nice talking to you.
I have a dog.
You're fine.
Get that dog.
I know, but it was fun. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You enjoy the rest of your night.
Everyone enjoy.
Later.
Quarantine.
All right, but I want to know, what would your ranking for the Jay and Silent Bob films be? Or not Jay and Silent, the View Askew universe be?
Oh my god.
We're just talking about those 6 or 7 films that there are.
Did you ask us to rank them? You kind of like lagged out for me.
Yes, rank them.
I think Chasing Amy's at the top, the tippy top.
Whoa.
Really? Wow.
Chasing Amy might be my favorite Kevin Smith movie.
I mean, it is in the Criterion Collection.
I'm surprised to hear you guys kind of react to that, because I'd say that's generally considered to be his most acclaimed movie.
Yeah, I think it's his best movie, and I think it's his most...
This is his best movie, for those of you who can't see.
Dogma? All right.
That's
yeah. I'm surprised because that didn't seem like the number one is what I meant.
A lot of people I talk to always say Dogma or Mallrats. I rarely, if ever, hear Chasing Amy.
I would say Chasing Amy, and then Clerks, and then Mallrats, and then Dogma. Those are my 4. And then I think... I don't know after that. That's tough. But those are my top 4 at this time.
Kevin Smith is such a writer's director, and I would say Chasing Amy is probably his tightest script, and I feel like he would say as much even still. He usually puts it up there as his tightest script, before it became so inside jokey and him just playing to his fan base.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say he was trying harder.
His fan base hates that movie. Just laying it out there. That's why it's become the butt of every joke in his later films, like Jay and Silent Bob, Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Because there's a line at the end. Why didn't they do another one of those his comics that he wrote, like Chasing Amy? You mean that Archie thing? Da, 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 da. Because his fans did not like that. They were expecting something more along the lines of these films here.
I mean, it is an outlier in that it's not nearly as... It still has his sense of humor, and it's clearly his dialogue, but it's not as irreverent. I mean, Jay and Silent Bob are in it.
Yeah.
Right? But they're not...
Banky and Holding, if I remember correctly, is who are the main characters of Chasing Amy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would put that towards the top. The first Clerks is so classic. It's almost cliche to put it at number 1, but I'd probably be tempted to. Strikes Back I think that was my entry point to him as well. I can remember seeing that in Dogma, like on Comedy Central, and then I saw
Clerks first. That was my first ever introduction into him. I remember renting it from Family Video. My mom was so mad. Like after I watched it, I was like, sorry.
37?
Yeah, it's. I definitely shouldn't have watched it at the age I watched it, but that was my first introduction to him, and then I just got really into him.
I feel like Kevin Smith is right. It's like the perfect tone for I'm too young to be watching this, but like it's about time for me to start getting into older things.
Yeah.
Getting, becoming an inappropriate teenager. It's like it's exactly what a 13-year-old is going to think is hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've watched Chasing Amy once, and I'm honestly of that group of fans who I was like, bye. Dogma is my favorite film because it's probably you mentioned tight script. Dogma is definitely one of his tightest scripts. It's probably in between like a Clerk silliness and a Chasing Amy seriousness, because you could say that Dogma's his adventure film, and he takes his shots at the church, but he also does well enough to show both sides of it. And sure, some people say it's one of those woke films, because I've heard that, and it's also the hardest one to get a hold of because of rights. Because God's a woman, and there's a black apostle and all this other stuff. But Dogma's, to me, outside of Clerks, had the most ethos of any of his films. So
I can see that. It's certainly one of his more outside the box works, which is, I'm a fan to some extent of pretty much all his movies, but I do like seeing him get a little more out of his comfort zone when it comes, if it's Clerks or Jay and Silent Bob. Like Reboot, I think was maximum him in his comfort zone, where it was just like he's playing the hits and doing what he thinks is funny and will play well for his fans. But like Dogma or something, I mentioned Red State earlier. When he gets outside of his comfort zone, he does some pretty interesting things, and I think he's a completely capable filmmaker outside of the usual tropes and tricks he likes. So I would love to. I mean, I guess Tusk still fits in that category too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what the fuck is Tusk? So I guess he is still playing that. I would just like to see. Like I know right now he's working on another Mallrats thing. So like I would like to see him continue to get outside.
We have some news on that. I pulled this little puppy up. Let me upload it real quick. But earlier today on Twitter, Paul Walter Hauser tweeted out something that caught the attention of Kevin Smith, which honestly it caught my attention too as soon as I saw the tweet, because for those of you who don't know, Paul Walter Hauser is one of the best up and coming actors, and he's just fucking great. So here's what Paul Walter Hauser said earlier, if it will load up. I've seen you at Kevin Smith. Yo, how do I audition for a Kevin Smith movie? Kevin Smith responds, I've seen you act, son. There's no way you'd be allowed to audition for one of my movies because Paul Walter Hauser is a must cast. If you work cheap and want in on the next flick, you're welcome aboard. It's either going to be Twilight of the Mallrats, Clerk 3, or Moose Jaws.
Oh my God, he's still making Moose Jaws. Thank God.
That was the reaction.
It's been announced since like right when Tusk was being made, and I've always like wanted him to make his Moose Jaws, his Canadian Jaws movie.
Well, he said, I think that's the movie that Jay and Silent Bob are going to die in.
Yeah.
So that was one that would kill them, and I was just like, thank God that never got made.
No, I'm ready.
No, I want Moose Jaws. I want a giant fucking moose.
Here's my thing. Especially what I noticed personally is because Mallrats was announced and Clerks 3 or Twilight of the Mallrats was announced and Clerks 3 was announced. I'd like to see him end his career with something like a Clerks 3 or end this universe, because you can argue that he realistically is one of the first people behind the cinematic universe. One of the first major people, because
the Views universe.
Exactly.
But Moose Jaws is in the Views universe.
Technically,
which means Tusk is as well.
Yes. And the two main, arguably the main characters of the View Askew universe, Jay and Silent Bob, are going to die in it. So that would be the only logical end to the View Askew universe.
Yes.
Hold on. Let me finish. He's gone on record saying right now the Great Northern Universe is a little bit disconnected. I was going to connect it by killing Jay and Silent Bob. He's like, and then I realized fans would lose their shit. It's Kevin Smith. He's honest about that. You want to see them die? I don't. But if say Mallrats is next, I'd like to see him close out with Clerks 3, because then we're kind of going in reverse order of how he came into the film world. You know what I mean? Because sure, we won't have a Chasing Amy 2 or a Dogma in between them, but going from Jay and Silent Bob reboot, which while it wasn't the best, it was I
liked it.
It was safe, but it was also enjoyable. I liked being back in that world.
Exactly. People loved being back in the world, and the way he wrote it, because at first you're like, oh my God, these characters aren't working. But then you finally see them age up. Like, Jay is now a father. You saw how his character changed throughout that film from being the same old crazy knucklehead we know and love to more of a calmer figure. And I think, if I remember correctly, he said he based that off of what's happened in Jason Mewes' life in the last few years, because Jason Mewes had a daughter, and he's calmed down from that crazy knucklehead that he was when he originally was in Clerks. And I know Jason Mewes has had his own struggles with substance abuse. So doing that, I would just love to see Mallrats 2, Twilight of the Mallrats, whatever it ends up being called, is the next logical step, and then closing out with Clerks 3, to me.
How do you guys feel about Mallrats? I actually just watched that for the first time this morning.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it was like the only acclaimed Kevin Smith movie I hadn't seen. I still haven't seen Jersey Girl.
I haven't seen Jersey Girl, and I probably never will.
Yeah, I haven't seen Cop Out, and I haven't seen Yoga Hosers, and I think that's it. But Mallrats had somehow eluded me all these years. What do you guys think of Mallrats?
It's my second favorite Kevin Smith film. I have it ranked as Dogma, Mallrats, Clerks, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks 2, Jay and Silent Bob reboot, Chasing Amy.
What do you think about Mallrats, Nick?
Oh, me?
Yeah, you over there.
I forgot about my rank 20 minutes ago. Anyways, so my favorite Mallrats is pretty fun to watch. I mean, I like it. If I had to rank my favorite Kevin Smith movies,
go ahead.
Clerks definitely be at number one for me. It's probably my favorite movie of all time due to its writing and just style and its budget. And sorry, what?
I didn't say anything.
You made a face at me when I was saying that.
No, I was scratching my back.
But yeah, I always thought that its budget was what impressed me the most, was how he made it on such a small budget, and it ended up just kind of taking off. Now, yes, he had to take a lot of money out in order to start to get it made, but
it sold his company.
I think it's the perfect example of working with what you have. And like I said, I love black and white. Or harsher black and whites, to be honest. And you know, I think that was kind of what I like Clerks too, but that's kind of where it falls off for me, because I thought that Clerks was such a intelligent movie, and then you just kind of start to get into the tropes of Clerks 2,
which was it starts more like a Jay and Silent Bob movie.
What?
Where it seemed more like a Jay and Silent Bob slapstick comedy.
Yeah. And the style starts to, I mean, it looks, Matt and I have discussed it before, where it's a movie, it's basically what would have happened if you gave Clerks a budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the style is different, it's not as gritty looking. I love how Clerks looks, just the original Clerks. Like I said, it's visual style. I mean, for almost half of my life, I've worked in retail at a store where stuff like that happens, and it just looks beautiful. in my opinion. I kind of understand all those tropes and stuff like that. So that's why Clerks is probably just, I don't know, one of my favorite movies of all time. I'll never forget the first time that I watched it. But Mallrats is good. It's one of my favorite Stan Lee cameos in any movie ever. Even with all the MCU ones, I kind of remember Stan Lee talking to Jason Lee the most, the Lees. But yeah, and the Jay and Silent Bob movies, I do agree that the second one was a lot of fan service, but I worry a little bit moving forward with his movies, and the reason why is because Yoga Hosers, if you've seen it, was a lot of fan service too. It was a lot of cameos. It was a lot of just different things here and there where I felt like it was starting to get into his past two movies, to me at least, have been a lot of fan service. And I hope that a movie that I'm looking forward to, where they might be back in the shop permanently with Jay and Silent Bob on the outside, it's not going to be black and white, but where Clerks 3 can take Clerks back to the first movie style more than the second movie.
And that's what I wanted to get to, because that was part of the reason Jeff, his last name slipping me, the guy who plays Randall Graves, that's part of the reason he didn't want to come back for the third one originally, because the last script apparently was more like Clerks 2, and he wanted something more serious like a Clerks 1.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, to see him back and to see him, taking pictures with Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, it's Jeff Anderson, I believe.
Yeah, Jeff Anderson.
Didn't even have to look it up. It's my Clerks now. But like to see him happy and back with Kevin Smith, kind of, it seems as though he's doing a lot of relationship rebuilding lately. Having Ben Affleck.
Yeah, I was very happy to see Ben Affleck.
Well, Ben Affleck, Kevin Smith has gone on record saying he's like that. We never really weren't friends. It was just Jennifer Gardner wasn't a big fan of me, and that's why we did our relationship. He said this is what he thinks, and just because he's the stoner buddy and all that.
But like to see him back with Ben Affleck and to see Jeff Anderson coming back for Clerks 3. I mean, I was more excited about that personally than I was with even seeing Ben Affleck in these films. And I know that he's been in a lot of them, don't get me wrong. But just, I was really happy to see Jeff Anderson, a person who's not in a lot. I mean, and I like him as an actor. I know he was in, and here's, my underrated Kevin Smith film, Zach and Miri Make a Porno.
I was going to ask about that one, yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I actually, again, watched that movie with Matt for the first time, I believe. And
we were going through a Kevin Smith phase, because it was like right after I found out you were into him, like, oh, cool. And you hadn't seen a good portion of his movies. And real quick, are those my Kevin Smith flicks? No, they are not, because you gave them to me. The only two that were your Clerks 1, Clerks 2, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Wow, the family drama.
Anyway, so make a Porno.
I hate to see it.
It was interesting. It wasn't his best movie, but I will say it's an underrated one. I see a lot more of Jason Mewes in that one than I ever wanted to. But here's the thing, is Jeff Anderson is in that movie.
Yes.
And I think one of the only other things that he's really acted in. And again, it was just nice to see him back. So I'm really excited to I'm still in the category of not this isn't DC level of Taylor going, well, I'll believe it when it gets made. But I've been waiting for this movie for a while, and I know that there were a lot of rights issues in Weinstein Company, but it took a little while to get to that point, and I am really excited to see Clerks 3. That is like my most anticipated movie of whenever
I think it's fair to be always skeptical with Kevin Smith, though, and have that attitude, because part of a symptom of his public personality and being on a podcast and hosting stuff is he's talking all the time. Dude loves to talk, and dude loves to kind of put the cart before the horse sometimes, and announces things way before they're completely greenlit, you know, or like he announces things and they never get made. Like now he's working on, I know, the He-Man show. It looks like that's actually happening. So.
Yeah, Netflix. That's half the animation is already done, and that was cast. Most of that's in the can.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see that because he's obviously such a fan of, you know, film, comic books, cartoons, just IP, and he never really gets to play in that wheelhouse too much. I mean, he's done it with the CW shows, obviously, on Supergirl and Flash and stuff. But I'm excited to see him really take the reins because I know he's writing it, and I think he's basically the showrunner.
Yeah, he's the showrunner.
I'm excited again to see him kind of get out of his comfort zone and do something different that we haven't seen him do before.
To that point, though, even, I mean, Jay and Silent Bob reboot was something that was announced that because I had heard so many rumblings of a Clerks 3 or a Mallrats 2 happening, that I was kind of like, maybe. And then it happened, and it was really, I mean, it got its limited release, but
he came out and said, leading up to the announcement of reboot, that part of the reason Mallrats 2 didn't happen or Clerks 3 was the rights issues. Like he's like, yeah, I don't own the rights to any other characters right now besides Jay and Silent Bob, really. So here we go.
And I was hoping at the beginning of reboot that Jeff Anderson would again be in that. And that was because when that movie came out, it was around the time that he had kind of announced that they had rekindled and stuff like that. So I was kind of like, oh my gosh, are we going to see the Clerks duo in another movie finally again? And then, you know, it didn't happen. But again, Clerks 3, I could keep going on and on and on and on about Clerks 3. But I want it to be what he's coming back for. I want it to be serious like the first one. And the first one, you weren't going to take it seriously at times. I mean, I'll still remember when they go to the funeral and
run out
over the casket, and you just see them running out. It was so guerrilla style. I love that movie for what.
By the way, I finally it took me till my recent viewing of Clerks with Jen to figure this out. So Mallrats literally takes place the next day. So that's a cool little Easter egg I found, because the girl that what's her name's character, Claire Forlani's character, talks about in the beginning, who died, that was the character who had the funeral in Mallrats and Clerks.
Mm-hmm.
So I caught that. I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Oh, that's cool.
Only took like 4 or 5 years after the fact.
All right, I'm going to bring it up because we kind of got into it or touched on it a little bit before the show actually started. Let's talk about Tusk.
That's right.
What do you guys think about Tusk?
I've never seen it, so I'm
I will never forget about the first time I saw Tusk with Taylor.
That's right, we saw it together.
We went to Cedar Lee. We were so excited for this movie, and we went to see it. It was like a special engagement, and I love that movie.
Interesting. It is
so bonkers, wild. It's so good.
Is it streaming somewhere?
I think it's streaming on Amazon Prime.
Watch it tonight, you fool! It rules. I'll stand by Tusk.
Yeah, I'll stand by Tusk for forever.
I know it didn't do well critically, and of course, it never was going to. But and I know Kevin Smith. He's very hard on himself. He's always kind of embracing his criticism and shitting on himself, or calling out ideas that maybe didn't work for a lot of people. But I wish he wouldn't be hard on Tusk, because I think it totally rules.
Yeah.
I think the essence of it, of getting really stoned on your podcast, coming up with a absurd idea in real time, and then having the tenacity to go and actually commit and make that movie all the way start to finish is hilarious, because all of us have done that. Not get stoned on a podcast, but all of us have come up with absurd, stupid ideas for movies, and it's like, oh, that'd be funny if we actually made that. He actually did that. You gotta love it.
Yeah, no. Somebody floated to me the idea of a show for us, because they said, call it writer's block, where you and a few other people get drunk and try to come up with a script.
Honestly, I would be on that show every night.
Connor's halfway there right now.
I'm already there. I came up with 2 movies on the previous podcast. Like, I'm there.
Oh, no, you came up with like 15 different movies with 2 prompts.
Yeah, man, Tusk is good. It's funny. It's horrifying. Michael Parks, the late Michael Parks, gives a great performance in it. He's also great in Red State.
Hold up. Wow, you're a horrible person.
What about
He's we talked about getting drunk and coming up with movies and all that, and he's got to say that. Go away. But no,
you put him up there.
I know. But you want to talk about horror and Kevin Smith? Let's talk about the horror movie that is Yoga Hosers, because that's technically considered a horror movie, and it's hard to watch. It's a guilty pleasure movie for sure.
I have not seen Yoga Hosers yet.
it might be his most forgettable film, but I don't think it's his worst. I think that's Jersey Girl.
Connor's probably the only one here who's seen Jersey Girl.
Yeah.
I mean, it popped up on
No,
Netflix.
I've never seen Jersey Girl. I just know it's his worst movie.
Yeah, I think Kevin Smith himself
Cop
usually
Out's the worst movie.
No, there's some funny parts in Cop Out.
There's one funny part in Cop Out.
When the kid tries to carjack them,
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
That's the only funny part.
No, there's more funny parts than that.
You know,
Yoga Hosers, to me, it doesn't feel like it's the same. I get that it's in the same universe as Tusk, but to me, it felt like such a different movie than like what Tusk was going for. I mean, because Tusk was just straight up, let's turn this dude into a walrus. I have no clue what the hell happened in Yoga Hosers. I honestly don't even remember the plot.
Yeah, there were sausage Nazis.
There's hell.
Bratzis,
yeah.
There's just it's so weird. And I have a little tidbit that I had heard that Jason Mewes was supposed to be a Bratzi.
I think that was while he was in rehab, wasn't it?
Well, he didn't like something about it, but he was supposed to be a Bratzi, I think.
I think he has really bad claustrophobia. I've heard this.
Yeah,
story.
and it was like the makeup wasn't working for him. But no, it did not work on the same level that Tusk did for me, because Tusk just kind of felt like it was just an out there movie. Yoga Hosers felt like it was not only
Johnny Depp's daughter and my daughter some spotlight. That's what it felt like.
Well, sure, yeah, but it also just kind of felt like it felt like 3 different movies at least. There was probably more movies that it felt like, because it felt like it was trying to jump between genres a lot to me. But also, it had that fan service thing. But also, it had like Tusk. I could see Tusk being like horrifying to somebody, the right person, right? I mean, like, and you take away some of the obscure parts of Tusk, and I think that you have a more straight horror movie on your hands. You take away the more obscure things in Yoga Hosers, and I still don't know what kind of a movie you have, really, to be honest with you. But I'll be honest, it's not one of my favorite Kevin Smith movies. I get why I should like it at times, but it's just like it felt too out there for me personally, as compared to what I had seen with Tusk, which I really enjoyed.
Well, we did talk about Kevin Smith, and we did mention one of his frequent collaborators, Jason Mewes. I got a question for the 3 of you, and have you guys seen Jason Mewes' directorial debut?
I have not. I'm aware of it.
Pass it like on.
It's on Amazon Prime right now.
Yeah, I pass it a lot of times, and I always like land on it, and I'm gonna watch it, and then I find something else.
Have you watched it, Matt?
Yes, I have actually.
What were your thoughts?
So I thought you were going to say, has anybody here seen Jason Mewes? And then I thought you were going to say Dick because of Zach and Miri. But
no, man, he tucks it back.
Oh, right.
No,
Never see it.
Miri. I'm sorry.
But no, Madness to the Method, I think is what it's called. It's his directorial debut. He's the lead. And if I remember correctly, he might have written it also. I can't remember.
No.
You're looking it up right now?
Two different people. Its initial release was in Russia, fun fact.
Yeah. The only reason I know about this movie is because of the now defunct Collider Live, may it rest in peace. They had Jason Mewes on, and Roxy Stryer, who is a great YouTube personality, go follow her. Or YouTube and Twitter personality, go follow her. She has a role in it, and he came on to talk about it, and he mentioned her and her role. So I went out, and I'm passing through on Amazon Prime one night, and I was like, "Oh, it's there. I'm gonna check it out." I was honestly surprised with how different and interesting it was, because it's not something you'd expect Jason Mewes to be in. It's a comedy, but a dark comedy, and it's more about him wanting to break out of being the funny guy, the funny buddy stoner guy, and being taken seriously as an actor. And then he accidentally becomes a serial killer and all this other shit. So it's definitely different.
Would you recommend it? Like, should I watch this tonight?
Yeah, it's a fun watch. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how I would rate it, but I would say definitely watch it if you're looking for something to watch, and that's in the vein of Kevin Smith, and you want it, and you enjoy watching Jason Mewes and all them. Definitely check it out. It's different. It's fun. There are fun parts. Gina Carano is in it. That surprised me. She plays Jason Mewes' wife. I was like, okay. But if you're looking for something to watch, I wouldn't say not watch it. It's going to depend on your mood. That night, I was just like, I've heard about this. It's here. If I don't hit play now, I'm never going to hit play again, probably. So let me do it.
How do you guys feel? Because we're talking kind of about late career Kevin Smith, Yoga Hosers, and rebooting stuff. How do you guys feel about him as a figure beyond his films? Because now he's so synonymous with podcasting. Obviously, comic books all the time, but he's always. It feels like he's like you can't get away from him. He's always hosting a panel or doing interviews. He's always on IMDb. It's like now he's such a figure. How do you guys feel? Like, do you listen to his podcasts or any of that?
I do listen to Fat Man on Batman when I get the chance to. I primarily listen to podcasts like SEN and formerly Collider. But when Fat Man on Batman or Schmodcast covers a topic I'm interested in, I go and listen to it. I did love Comic Book Men. I used to watch Comic Book Men religiously. Like that show, especially when after I graduated high school, is kind of when I really discovered that show. And it was an outlet for me to just be like, you know what, screw it, embrace your full on geek. I'm going for it. But when you talk about podcasts and whatnot, part of the reason when I came up with the Who Are They Real Entertainment and all that was part Collider and part Kevin Smith, because I've said before, I've had this conversation with Nick. I want to work with you guys too. We all want to work in movies, but this is a nice little outlet to where we could talk about the stuff we want to do and just talk movies and all that. So he's partly the inspiration for all this.
I do.
Good.
You go. Will you say something? You say something.
His IMDb stuff. I was waiting to figure out who was going to say something.
Yeah.
His IMDb stuff is really good too. Like, I like watching his interviews with people that I wouldn't have even thought he would interact with. I remember one with Finn Wolfhard being really good. But sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say touching on him as an influence. You know, he is so transparent and he is so everywhere. I honestly do appreciate the optimism he injects in fandom and creativity. You know, I know a lot of people kind of shit on him, you know, say he's like a shill or whatever, you know, like he's just a fan. But so much of the internet and, you know, whether it be nerdy stuff or just IP communities. So much of it with film and comics and whatever, it always tends to become so criticism heavy. And obviously criticism is a part of art. You know, if you're going to make something, you need to be prepared to hear people's thoughts. That's the whole idea, is it's compelling. But he injects such an optimism where it's like he just loves the shit he loves. He's not going to apologize for it. It's not about putting on a reputation or appearing cool or, you know, this stuff is okay, but this stuff isn't. It's like this guy will set up a webcam and he'll bawl his eyes out watching an episode of The Flash. And like, nothing resonates with me like that, but I really appreciate that he loves it so much and that he's out here putting a spotlight on stuff that he likes. And it's just cool to have an optimist, you know, out here in the creative field, because it's so easy to find people whose main priority is just let's shit on stuff and make fun of things, where he's like, no, I just love it, you know?
Well, here.
Yeah, and he said multiple times, like, he makes the movies he wants to see.
Yeah.
Nobody's making the movies he wants to see, really, and he's going to make the movies he wants to see. I think that's really inspiring. I think, you know, if you have something you like and you want to see it and no one else is making it, then make it. Right. And he's really inspirational. Like, whenever I hear him talk about that, I'm like, all right, I'm going to make the movie I want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's making the movies he wants to see that he can get away with making. Like, because he's gone on record, I'd love to make a superhero flick, but no one wants to trust me with that amount of money. And there was something the other day on Twitter, actually, there was an M. Night Shyamalan fan page who actually attacked Kevin Smith, who said, unpopular opinion, as a director, Kevin Smith is categorically worse than M. Night Shyamalan, but constantly gets a pass for his mediocrity and will never be blacklisted by Hollywood because he's a cis white male nerd who speaks nerd. And I'm like, and Kevin Smith actually went out of his way to respond to that. He's like, get a pass for mediocrity. Christ, I wish. I paid. I was flayed alive online and in print for years for those flicks. But good or bad reviews isn't a factor in Hollywood. The key to a long, mediocre career is keeping your budget low. If you can work cheap, and you can always work.
And that's why I love Clerks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of always been the torchbearer of indie film, from Clerks to now, still keeping people inspired and encouraging people to do what they want, you know?
I think M. Night was, you know, quote unquote blacklisted, but now he's like getting all this stuff made. So I mean,
Shyamalan can still get something with wide distribution.
Yeah, like
Kevin Smith can.
His last 3 movies have been either like simultaneous VOD and limited release, or just straight to VOD. Like,
right.
Yoga Hosers was a Fathom event. So was Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and Tusk was limited release. It's still a wide release, but limited. And before that, his last wide release movie was Cop Out, I think. And
I think Zack and Miri came out after Cop Out, right?
Zack and Miri was before Cop Out. But yeah.
Either way, I think comparing them doesn't really work that well.
Right. And I think he's never had a film over the budget of $10 million, if I remember correctly.
Cop Out, I think, is his most expensive.
Yeah, I would believe that in a heartbeat.
Willis on there. Bruce Willis is $1 million a day, baby.
Shyamalan knows.
Yeah.
Why is a Shyamalan fan coming for people?
On my Instagram, the dude looks exactly like him. They could not have had a better version of Bruce Willis. It's very noticeable when he's in the scene, but like he like, if he's wearing a pair of sunglasses, I would probably not be able to tell the two apart.
Who is this?
Bruce Willis's stunt double.
Oh.
He literally has an account that's called Bruce Willis's stunt double. So it just popped up on my Instagram out of nowhere in my Explore page. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And they're like, oh, that's the guy who's making a lot of money.
Who's getting paid?
Kevin Smith, apparently, is what my dad's saying.
Oh, I mean, probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
but he's one of those people who probably doesn't need to worry about his movie making a lot of money because of all the other things that he's doing.
Because realistically, he's making like $30+ million on like a $4 million budget. That's making money,
right?
So it's just like, what do you expect?
I mean, he's the main producer on pretty much all of these movies now. I know that Saban was making Jay and Silent Bob reboot, but like, I'm sure that he has so much that's going into these movies that at this point, I think he's just making them because he can. That's a good thing. That's the place where we all want to be, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, shit. If I could have enough money to make a movie and get it distributed after the fact and just make thousands of people happy. Because, granted, Jay and Silent Bob reboot, once again, wasn't the best film. I still walked out of it happy because I was happy to be back. Yeah. People could care less about how these movies are because they love the world so much. Mm-hmm. As long as they're having a fun time in the world, it can be a horrible script, which it's him, so I doubt it will be. It might not be the best directed, but the script's normally tight. I like his scripts. His directing, hit and miss. I love the stuff he does in CW. Great. But he knows his stuff, whether it's comic books, whether it's his own stuff, whether it's just making stuff on a low budget. He knows how to make quality stuff with what he's got to work with, and that's why I like him so much.
Yeah, he knows what he's interested in, and he's got a built-in fan base that is interested in the exact same things. I do kind of share the sentiment that he can wrap up the whole View Askew concept on his own terms and kind of come up with some final thesis statement, and maybe then sneak in a death scene in Moose Jaws. And then after that, I would like to see him still come back to the director's chair once in a while and do something different and come at it from another angle. Like I said earlier, something like Red State. Where it's
yeah.
So unidentifiably a Kevin Smith movie. But
I know a lot of comic book fans wanted him to be the director for Flash. Honestly, seeing what he's done with the TV show, I was on board with that.
It really is shocking how he hasn't gotten like one of these like comic book movies, but then again, it makes sense because
I'm not sure he is actually interested in doing it, because I've heard him say a lot of times that it's too high pressure, too much money.
Yeah,
too much
I mean, he was going to do a couple different Marvel shows. He was going to do the animated Howard the Duck.
Yeah, but
then he was going to do something else, and both of them got scrapped.
Those got scrapped because of the Disney Fox deal. So
that was the one that got scrapped. Only one of them's being carried over, and then Disney Marvel gave him an animated show, or maybe it was live action. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it, but that got scrapped just recently.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think he's very interested in making studio movies, because there's too many notes, there's too many filters to get through, there's too producer credits that you have to get through. I think Cop Out is his last studio film, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a notoriously miserable experience for him. So I think
he's said more so that's because of Bruce Willis, not the studio.
Definitely more so because of Bruce Willis, but still a studio movie. I don't think Bruce Willis would have shown up in Yoga Hosers. You know what I mean? So I think
$45 million was the budget for that one, guys. I would just like to.
How much?
That. 45 mil.
Oh wow!
Now it made 55, so it was so profitable.
Yeah,
somewhat. Not a lot.
That's not profitable. That's because what you have to factor in. 45 is just a production budget. Then you have the marketing budget and all those other costs, and what the theaters are taking out of that 55 million, because the theaters get a percentage of that. So realistically, they say you have to make 1.5 times your film's budget just to break even.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, man.
Well, we it looks like we're getting a little guest here in a second.
Is it Bruce Willis?
Oh,
God, I don't have the budget for that.
We don't have the budget for that.
Stunt double? There you go.
It's Bruce Willis' stunt double.
Bruce Willis' stunt double. Oh, geez. Nah, not Bruce Willis' stunt double. But someone who has actually interviewed Kevin Smith, if they can get the link to work. I
know who it is.
Yes, but no. We're gonna have someone to join us to finish off the show. Let's see if this link works for them. Who's hoping it does.
I hope they like Tusk. I hope they're cultured.
I can tell you that they've never seen Tusk. They've never seen Yoga Hosers. I'm pretty sure the last Kevin Smith film they saw was Clerks 2. No, it was Cop Out. I know for a fact it was Cop Out. Just waiting to see if it works. But no, let's talk about Cop Out. Have all of you seen Cop Out?
Yes.
No, I've not seen Cop Out. I was mentioning earlier, I've read his book.
Yeah.
He gives many anecdotes about what a god awful experience it was making Cop Out. So I know some of the legend behind it.
I know Connor's like, it has funny moments. To me, the only funny moment, it has two funny moments. I thought of another one when Sean William Scott is getting dragged by a car. Hey, here we go.
I like Cop Out. A lot of people don't, but I like it.
There we go.
Hey!
What's up?
How's it going?
It's going. What do you want?
Let's hear your thoughts about Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith is a dude who said, I want to make a movie. He got lucky and he got noticed. And he's been able to follow his dream since. It's very simple. And that's all he's ever really cared about, being able to do what he wants to do. He's an independent filmmaker. He never claims to be great. He's a blue-collar filmmaker. He's never been pretentious. And he just wants to do what he wants to do. Although I'd love to see what he could do with a true comic book movie. I really would. Something he has a passion for.
His episodes of The Flash on the CW and his episodes of Supergirl are some of my favorite, the ones that he's done at least, because it gets away from the superheroes, more of the superhero stuff, and focuses on the actual characters.
Yeah, but that's television. Sorry.
Yeah. And it's CW.
That's television.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the character work right now.
With all due respect, if somebody gave him a nice property like Batman and a very nice budget, he'd do some blow your mind kind of bullshit simply because he loves the material. Period.
I mean, he did almost do Superman with Nick Cage.
Yeah.
With the black suit, long hair, and blow your mind bullshit.
I want to see what he does with Daredevil, because he wrote a Daredevil.
Yeah, he had an entire run at Daredevil.
Yeah.
And it's considered one of the best runs in the comics history, if I remember correctly.
I would love him to see him take that and adapt it.
No one's ever going to give him the chance, and I'm not sure that at this point he really wants it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in a good place. Mm-hmm. I mean, he makes films when he wants to. He gets paid to speak nationally. I mean, he's been at Kent State a couple times. I think I've interviewed him twice. He's just a chill kind of guy. And let's face it, at any point in your lives, if any of you four guys who aspire to do filmmaking would trade anything to be in his spot. He does what he wants to do. He goes where he wants to go. He talks about what he wants to talk about.
Yeah.
I know Connor. I know Nick. Neither of you. I'm sorry, I forgot. Who else is here?
Taylor.
Sorry, man. I don't know you as well as the other two, but I know none of you are pretentious. You know what I mean? I could see Nick making it big in movie making and still living in his parents' house and not caring. And waking up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with laptop in hand. I could see you doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's, like I said, he's just chill.
I don't know how his parents feel about that one.
I don't know how I would feel about that one.
I don't know how I would feel about that one. Well, no.
So, there's my 2 cents. And, I do have audio, or a friend has audio of an interview I did with him, I don't know how many years ago. I never kept it.
Wasn't it?
Huh?
It was for Clerks 2, wasn't it?
I don't remember. It's like I used to have a case filled with interview tapes. I eventually tossed them all out. I thought about digitizing, then I realized I had a life, so I didn't. But a friend is supposed to have a copy of one of those, so I'll get it to you.
That would be awesome.
But gents, enjoying the show. Have a good night.
You too,
night.
You as well.
Nick, stay you, man. Connor, when I need a source again, I'll call you.
All right, absolutely.
Later.
Later.
That was very ominous, Connor. I don't know what that meant.
Oh,
Well, you don't want to know.
no. My dad, being a Akron Canton news reporter, needed Connor for a source for something.
Yeah, he's interviewed me a couple times, so
Exclusive.
Yes.
yeah, exclusive.
Connor's been in the paper.
Twice.
Oh no. But yeah, so I think we talked enough about this. We if we want to talk more about indie film, we'll do that in the future. I know.
Real quick, would any of you consider Kevin Smith to be one of your main influences in, getting into film or doing anything in film?
Him and George Lucas.
Hey.
I would say his style and his filmmaking, I don't know how much it resonates in what I'm interested in when it comes to writing, but his cult of personality and the energy he puts out there and the encouragement he provides and just the day-to-day entertainment I'm always getting from his podcast, at the very least, is very helpful and encouraging. So I don't know.
I think I'm in the same boat as you, Taylor, where I don't think I would make the same type of movie. I mean, Red State definitely is more in my wheelhouse. But just hearing him talk, what he could do with Clerks, and pretty much how he just tells everybody, if you have a movie, if you have a script and you want to make it, just make it. Do what you can to make it, and just keep doing it. I think that part of him, it makes me a huge fan of him and makes him a huge inspiration for me.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, young Nicholas?
Oh yeah, no, he definitely. I love Clerks. I mean, that's my big thing, and if I can make something as grounded as that, then I'm happy. That people watch and enjoy. That's just my big thing. I'm with Matt when he had said earlier.
Old man gets it.
I'm with Matt earlier when he had said being able to reach an audience that's consistent, and even if it is reaching 1,000 people, that's always a good feeling to me. And I just kind of like the way that he resonates, So yeah.
Well, Nick, you read what I've sent you of Oreo, and you even told me, you're like, okay, I could see why you said this is the Kevin Smith type feel, where it was more realistic but still had the thing I like about Kevin Smith is his way to pull off situational comedy. And that's kind of what I'm trying to pull from his stuff, because he does well with character work and situational comedy. Those are his two best attributes as a writer to me. And that's kind of what I try to take from him when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Fans.
But something that we didn't write, but we did make, that you can go check out on the channel now, is Where's KG, starring Howie Bling. If you haven't checked that out, go watch that. It is a funny little 8-9 minute sketch video we did from Wizard World Cleveland, starring our buddy Tom, that Nick and I did, and that was basically all improv right there. And Tom, he came in saying he's not an actor, and it's part of the reason I'm so proud of the way it came out, because he came in saying, I'm not an actor, but I'm like, you're not acting, you're just doing this impression that you love to do. He's like, all right. So if you guys, those watching, if you haven't seen Where's KG, go check that out. Follow us on all of our social medias. We got Connor with Prince Avalanche, Taylor with OK Story Taylor.
_ Story Taylor.
Okay. Got Nick with Nick Mole or Nick Mole Film, and me with What Movies Matt. So go ahead and follow those. But yeah, next week we have our interview with Johnny Woo, so check that out. And signing off, I'm Matt. He's Nick.
Hey.
That's Connor. That's Taylor.
Noochie boochies.
Snoogans.
Noochie boochies.